Welcome to today's video, where we unpack the hidden risks of deviating from the travel plan tied to your approved U.S. visa. We will focus on why specific annotations on B1/B2 visas matter, how changes to arrival dates or ports of entry can trigger scrutiny, and how to prepare the right documentation. Let's set the stage, and then move into clear, actionable guidance. Here is our roadmap for the video. First, we will explain the importance of visa annotations. Next, we will discuss arrival date changes, and then the high-risk decision of changing your port of entry. After that, we will outline the documentation you should carry, followed by a risk matrix and side-by-side comparisons. Then we will test your understanding with brief quizzes, deliver an important disclaimer, and finally summarize with next steps. To begin, imagine you received a B1 or B2 visa with a specific annotation such as business trip December 1st to 8th. You later decide to arrive on December 4th and enter through a different city for convenience. While this might feel harmless, the presence of that annotation indicates a narrow scope of permitted travel. This scenario illustrates why deviations can prompt intensive questioning at the port of entry. Now let's clarify what visa annotations mean. If your B1 or B2 visa has specific dates or a detailed purpose, that is unusual and indicates a restricted scope. The consular officer has effectively tied your visit to those specifics. Therefore, any deviation, such as changing dates or the port of entry, can raise concerns of misrepresentation. If changes are unavoidable, ensure you have evidence that still connects the revised plan to the original purpose described by the annotation. Next, let's talk about delayed arrivals. If your visa specifies a defined window, such as December 1st to 8th, and you arrive on the 4th, the officer may authorize your stay for only the remaining days. To mitigate problems, keep delays minimal, and carry documentation from the sponsoring company or partner that explains the delay and updates meeting dates. Also, bring updated proofs that still reflect the original purpose, and be prepared to articulate a day-by-day plan that remains consistent with the annotated scope. Meanwhile, changing your port of entry is often the most controversial modification you can make. Your visa application materials typically established a primary destination. Arriving through a different city can suggest that your original plan was inaccurate or misleading. If a change of port of entry is unavoidable, carry comprehensive documentation that convincingly connects the new arrival city to the original itinerary and purpose. Without a credible, well-documented explanation, you risk intense questioning, refusal of entry, and potentially visa cancellation. To put this into perspective, consider a risk matrix. A minor date delay, supported by documentation, is generally low to medium risk. A major date shift with limited proof is high risk and needs multiple corroborating documents. A port of entry change, even with a strong link to the original plan, is high risk. Without a clear link, risk becomes very high, and refusal of admission becomes a real possibility. Let's compare minor and major changes. Minor changes include small delays supported by sponsor confirmations, maintaining the same city and meetings, and ensuring all new bookings align with the original plan, accompanied by a clear day-by-day plan. In contrast, major changes involve entering through a new city without a documented link, significantly shifting dates without strong proof, changing the visit purpose, or lacking consistent documents. The latter category triggers far more scrutiny at the port of entry. Before we test your knowledge, assemble a strong documentation package. Include a sponsor letter or email confirming any change and the reason. Provide an updated schedule that still aligns with the original annotated purpose. Ensure hotel and flight bookings match the revised but connected itinerary. Prepare a concise, written explanation that ties everything together and, if you changed your arrival city, include evidence that directly connects that city to your meetings or events. Quiz time. The question is, your B1 visa is annotated. Business trip December 1st to 8th. You arrive on December 4th with a sponsor email explaining a 3-day delay. What is the most likely outcome? The options are: A. You will be refused entry for arriving late. B. You will be admitted but likely authorized for fewer days aligned with the remaining business purpose. C. You will get a full 6 months automatically. D. The annotation is ignored at the border. You may pause the video now to think about your answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is B. Because the visa annotation narrows the scope and dates of your trip, An officer may admit you but limit your stay to what remains of the stated business purpose. The presence of a credible sponsor email supports admission but does not guarantee a longer authorized stay. Second quiz. You plan to arrive in New York per your application, but decide to enter through Los Angeles without documentation linking Los Angeles to your meetings. What risk are you facing? Options. A. No risk because port of entry never matters. B. Low risk and a verbal explanation is enough. C. High risk due to suspected misrepresentation and possible refusal with visa cancellation. D. Medium risk only if you also delayed arrival. You may pause the video now to consider your answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section. The correct answer is C. Changing your arrival city without documentation connecting it to your original itinerary is a major red flag. It can signal possible misrepresentation and can lead to refusal of admission and visa cancellation. To visualize risk distribution, consider this pie chart. The largest share of scrutiny typically focuses on unanticipated port of entry changes. Date delays are relatively common but still require solid proof. Purpose shifts happen less frequently, yet when detected, they can be decisive and trigger denial. Let's cement the main ideas. First, annotations indicate a narrow scope and should be treated as binding constraints. Second, arrival delays require documentation and may shorten your authorized stay. Third, port of entry changes are inherently high risk and must be backed by strong links to your original plan. Finally, always remember that your explanation is only as strong as your documentation. Before we wrap up, an important disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Immigration policies and enforcement practices can change, and your individual facts matter greatly. For personalized guidance, consult a qualified immigration attorney. This flowchart illustrates the officer's potential decision path at the port of entry. It begins with arrival, then checks whether the visa has an annotation. If yes, the officer examines any changes from the plan. For a date change, the key is whether documentation is adequate. If so, admission with a limited stay is likely, whereas inadequate proof may lead to secondary inspection or refusal. For a port of entry change, the crucial question is whether there is a strong link to the original purpose. With a strong link, admission is possible but risky. Without it, refusal or cancellation becomes likely. If there is no annotation, the officer conducts standard B1 or B2 questioning and, provided the purpose is credible, admission typically follows. To summarize, treat visa annotations as constraints rather than suggestions. If you must change your plan, document it thoroughly and ensure it stays tied to the original purpose. Approach port of entry changes as high risk and prepare accordingly. Finally, rehearse a clear explanation and carry copies of all supporting documents. Thank you for watching. If this video helped, please like, share, and subscribe. Share your questions or experiences in the comments so others can learn as well.